pandemic. We also asked that the Attorney General provide us with regular updates regarding the steps that DOJ is taking to combat this behavior moving forward. We're really glad to gather the number of supporters we had. We actually had 151 members of Congress signing it, but unfortunately, since Congressman Lewis passed away, we had to take him off just out of respect. So as I mentioned, we had 150 bipartisan members of Congress sign the letter. We had 18 committee chairs sign the letter, which is really great. We had 5 Republicans also sign the letter, many of which we didn't think would sign our letter, because a lot of times they take more conservative approaches, but we were really glad to get them on. We had a total of 47 groups supporting, and that was a mix of both Asian American organizations as well as non-Asian American organizations, which is really great for us to build, again, this coalition support, making it so that it's not just an issue that Asian Americans should care about, it's an issue that everyone should care about. So really great to see that. Separately, Attorney General Barr came before the House Judiciary Committee last week. We asked several questions. Members had the opportunity to ask several questions, but due to the limited time, the congressman wasn't able to ask any questions to follow up on this letter. However, we have an opportunity to submit questions for the record, also known as QFRs. So we will be sending that separately in hopes to get a written response from the Department of Justice, in addition to following up on the letter that we had already sent. We got a lot of press on this. We had large media outlets cover our letter, and so that was really great just to continue to put the pressure, continue to get the word out on this issue. And so with this letter, we'll continue to monitor, what the Department of Justice is doing. We'll be sending our QFRs, and hopefully we'll get answers to those. And depending on when the congressman would like to see a letter, we could also send a follow-up inquiry just at the staff level with the agency to make sure that they could get us something soon. Just because in the past administration with SARS and after 9/11, we saw the administration during that time putting or taking some action. But as we've seen from the Trump administration, they continue to fan the flames, and it's really great to see that we had the number of members sign on to our letter, including all the chairs of the various committees, to really put forth this strong bipartisan effort. And I think the Senate may do something again at another point, but if that happens, I'm happy to follow up with you all. And of course, happy to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, and I would encourage the participants, if you have questions, please send them through the chat. Unfortunately, we won't have a true Q&A session, but if you send your comments and questions through chat or through email to me or Vincent Wang, we'll try to address them after the call. Thank you, Aurora. I guess let me introduce Crystal quickly. Crystal is the executive director for CAPAC, the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus. Crystal, welcome back. On July 27th, CAPAC Chair Judy Chu issued a letter and guidance on China messaging to members of Congress. Would you take up to 5 minutes to tell us a little bit more about it? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you for that introduction, Jeremy, and for having me on today's call. So last week, Congresswoman Chu, as chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, issued a dear colleague to all members of Congress, both in the House and the Senate, and both Democratic and Republican, just to highlight the uptick in anti-Asian hate crimes that we've seen in recent months, and really to urge members of Congress to be responsible in the type of rhetoric they use and not to, fan the flames of xenophobia, as we've seen with reference to, the coronavirus as China virus, Chinese virus, Kung flu. There's been a slew of really derogatory terms associated with it. And so she just wanted to send a message to colleagues just to be responsible and not to, stoke xenophobia and spread fear at a time when tensions are already very high, and that we're seeing, unfortunately, the negative backlash on Asian Americans here in the United States, who are, both ethnically Chinese, but also those perceived to be Chinese. So anyone of East Asian descent at this point. We've heard from a number of folks who are fearful of being targeted and profiled. And so that's something that she just wanted to alert colleagues to, because a lot of them, may not know that this has led to an uptick in hate crimes and hate incidents. The other thing too, and I had mentioned this during our last call, but with the National Defense Authorization Act up last month, that was another time where we saw a lot of just really irresponsible rhetoric geared towards China and fear mongering and kind of Cold War style rhetoric aimed at China. And so we really wanted to make sure that there was adequate guidance out there. So again, the toolkit she provided is two-pronged. It has both some messaging guidance on how to discuss China and encouraging members of Congress to be very specific when they're talking about China, not, again, using Cold War style rhetoric that paints the entire country as an enemy and all Chinese people en masse as enemies and individuals that we should be fearful of. And again, to be very specific in criticisms towards China and specifically towards the Chinese Communist Party when members of Congress are, making criticisms or claims against China. Whereas, conversely, we have seen, unfortunately, just Republican efforts to really do everything to paint China as the enemy, to blame China for everything that is currently wrong in our country, whether it's due to the coronavirus or just economic turmoil that Americans are facing. So again, we see this as very dangerous rhetoric, and we've seen the consequences. We've seen it years before with the cases of Sherry Chen and Professor Xiaoshang Shi, and we're seeing it now with the uptick in anti-Asian hate crimes and incidents that have occurred over the past few months. So that's it on our end. I did want to say, since our last meeting too, I had mentioned some of the updates from our meeting with NIH. We have still been pressing and working with the House Oversight Committee to try to get additional follow-up from both the NIH and the FBI regarding cases of Chinese American scientists and engineers and others and folks in academia who feel like they're being profiled. We have not been able to get much of a response, so we will continue to work with the House Oversight Committee to push for additional answers, and I'll let you know if we get any additional updates to share.
Thank you very much, Crystal, and also Aurora, for your reports from the CAPAC perspective. At this time, I'll transition to the next agenda topic about building and sustaining a network or ecosystem. For those who may not be familiar with the background of APA Justice, we are a task force of volunteers created in 2015 in response to CAPAC Chair, Congresswoman Judy Chu's call for a platform to connect and address racial profiling and related justice and fairness issues. We facilitate, we inform, and we advocate. From its start in 2015, a stated goal of APA Justice is to facilitate consensus and coalition building on an issue-by-issue basis. Building a network or an ecosystem is a unique role that APA Justice plays, and we bring several topics to the table with the theme, this particular theme today. Stephen Wong will be the first speaker on this topic today. I would like to first mention that the 1990 Institute was among the first organizations to endorse Congressman Liu's joint letter to Attorney General Barr. We pose two questions to Stephen today. What is the Asian American marketing and advertising industry doing? And how can or should the Asian American community get involved? Stephen, would you take up to maybe 18 minutes or so to give us your presentation so that Russell can also join you after your presentation? Thank you, Stephen. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So I'm going to take over the screen share.
Please do.
Let me know when you can see my screen.
I can see
We
your
can see you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So let me introduce myself real quick. I'm here as the committee chair of the Marketing Communications Committee for the 1990 Institute. With me today is our chairman, Dan Chow, that plenty of you might already know. I'm going to talk a bit about our vision at 1990 Institute. We are hoping for a constructive US-China relationship that's also conducive to fair and equal treatment of all Asian Americans in the US. Our mission is to use our connections historically and work with our partners to use educational programming to mobilize collective impact to achieve that vision. As the name suggests, we've been around for 30 years now. Historically, racism has not been the focus. It's the current political environment that's driving us to have this new, much more pointed focus. Historically, we've focused on education, and we've had success with programs like the China Now for Teachers program, which has reached over, I believe, 70,000 teachers in 13 states with US-China curricula that they can take into their classrooms. Youth Voices on China worked directly with young students with items like video contests where they could share their own experiences. And there was also Book Bonanza, which provided educational content to those interested. So that's us. I'm going to dive straight into the Ad Council ad that started running a week ago, or maybe it's 2 weeks ago now, Tuesday. So firstly, give you some background. Ad Council is a nonprofit that has been active for a long time, working in the media with advertising agencies and creative professionals to take their skills at reaching hearts and minds and applying that to social causes. They invited 1990 Institute to help promote this specific campaign that combats anti-Asian American hate. This campaign, Fight the Virus, Fight the Bias, sits under the Love Has No Labels campaign category. And that specific campaign, I think you've seen it, it's been running for 5 years. This one targets racial bias, hate, and discrimination in America. So with that, I'm going to come to the actual ad. This is brand new. You may not have seen this yet, so I'm going to play it for you in a moment. It was directed by Alan Yang, who is a hotshot right now. He has Emmys. He was behind Parks and Rec, the TV show, and Master of None, which was a very highly recognized show. I think it was on Netflix or HBO. I might be wrong. So with that, give me 1 second. I'm going to pull up the video. Can everyone hear this?
No, not yet. No, I cannot hear.
Okay, no worries.
I can see the picture.
You can see the picture? Okay, I'm going to come back in with my sound share. So I'm coming back in now. Jeremy, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it again.
I've heard people make comments like, thanks for bringing the virus over.
Didn't it come from you guys? A passenger told me that I should go back to China.
I've had strangers cough at me.
People move away from me.
Someone spit 3 times towards my direction. I felt so violated. My biggest fear is that all the stereotypes that we've worked so hard to break are just going to be reversed. and I won't let that happen.
Everyone has to keep everyone else safe. We all have to play our part.
I've been spending 8 to 10 hours a day making masks.
I donate my plasma.
As an essential worker, I'm delivering food, groceries for my community.
I mean, I know I'm putting myself at a little extra risk. I'm happy to do it.
It's really hard to talk about racism when all I want to do is cry about it.
You have to talk about it to other people. You have to tell them these things exist.
We're all human. I'm a firefighter, not a virus.
I'm a mask maker, not a virus.
I'm a nurse, not a virus.
I'm a delivery woman.
I'm a rideshare driver.
I'm a chef, a neighbor,
Artist.
Bus driver.
I'm a doctor.
Fight the virus. Fight the virus.
Okay. Okay, that can be a little hard to watch for some people. I'm glad they went there. Next, I'm going to talk a bit about their brief. So this was a brief that was given to Alan Yang, the director. Their target audience is, and this is a target audience for all of the Love Has No Labels campaign. It's armchair supporters of inclusivity and diversity. So these are individuals who themselves might not be activists. In fact, they're specifically not activists. They're not politically active. They're not even religiously active, but they are mainstream America, and they lean towards more liberal. Demographically, they are representative of what the census says this country is, and they're more urban. But the thing is, the most important thing is that they believe in American ideals and they believe in fair treatment and equality, but they're also not aware that unfair treatment and race hate is happening. So the goal of this, as part of that larger Love Has No Labels campaign, is to surface it, make people aware so that they can act on it, even if it's just speaking up when they see something like this happen and saying, that's not cool, don't do that. The press coverage has been pretty good. It could be better, but it's been pretty good. When the campaign launched on the 22nd, the New York Times had the exclusive. So they had a nice piece here talking about the ad, talking about the thinking behind the ad, and most importantly, trying to raise awareness that this type of activity is happening. This anti-Asian activity is happening. And as you can see, it's been picked up by major news outlets across the country, and especially by media outlets. It would be great if we could get more coverage in major news outlets, and especially in local news coverage. Social media. So this is an area of focus by the Ad Council. When I asked them last week how their results were shaping up, they explained to me that they were right in the midst of tallying the metrics. So we don't have those yet. But I do want to point out that young Asian American celebrities are taking up this ad and promoting it to their networks, which might be the most viral, if you will, on social media. Large organizations like Jonathan Greenblatt, I think he's president of the ADL itself. A lot of Jewish celebrities like Dave Schwimmer have also been active in promoting this campaign. The most active person promoting it right now is Sandra Oh. So we thank them all for what they're doing. Now I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about the 1990 Institute video program, which is akin to the ad we just saw. So at 1990, we have two video series that we're launching in the 2020-2021 cycle that I believe will go into 2022. The first series is focused on Asian Americans, and this is combating the or I should say the fair treatment of Asian Americans, part of our mission. This series will share stories about race, culture, identity. It will target US high school students and above, and the distribution will be via social media through us and our partners and paid social, and educators and influencers and partner organizations, partnerships and audiences that we're already entrenched with. The second video series is tackling US-China relations, and this will focus on changing perceptions of the dynamic that we just heard about from the previous two speakers. And this also targets the high school students and decision makers with a slight skew into maybe more national organizations that are tackling this topic. And lastly, I want to talk about how we can help. So before I read this out, I should have mentioned earlier that for the Ad Council Fight the Bias, Fight the Virus, Fight the Bias campaign, the best way to help is to go onto your social media. Let me just go back up here. Type in this hashtag, Fight Virus Bias, find this ad, and like it and share it. You'll find it on your Facebook feeds, you'll find it on Twitter, you'll find it on Instagram, it's on YouTube. That's the best way. Get it out there, show your support, share it with your peers. And for 1990 specifically, we need help gathering stories for those two video series that I just mentioned. We need your expertise making them educational and also interesting to our audiences. We're offering 1990s marketing and communications capabilities to get broader reach for your messages and your expertise as well that we can feature in our videos. And our thinking is that a lot of people are doing great things, but it's getting lost in the noise, or it's not even getting out there at all. So the important thing is packaging up our thoughts and putting them into media that can be shared and broadcast. That is it from me. If Russell wants to jump in, I would love to hear from him.
Thank you, Stephen. Next, I would like to invite Russell. He's the professor at San Francisco University. And about a couple months ago, I believe, Russell, you came on and talked about the Stop AAPI Hate initiative. And it continues to receive major media attention. You were also a panelist in a recent town hall meeting on July 21st. So, Russell, would you maybe take a few minutes, up to 5 minutes or so, and share your observations and following Stephen's presentation? What are your thoughts about the town hall meeting? What about the thoughts of the, his presentation, as well as what can the Asian American community get involved going forward? Russell, the floor is yours.
Okay, hi everyone, and thanks Jeremy for inviting me. Yeah, I really applaud Representative Liu and Representative Chu's efforts to work on the federal level to address anti-Asian hate during the pandemic. It's clear to us, as we look at our data, we have over 2,500 incidents of hate against Asian Americans during COVID-19, that anti-China rhetoric is driving it. It's not necessarily fear of the COVID, it's not necessarily economic distress, it's actually political rhetoric is fueling the hate. And that's why Representative Chu's media strategies to deal with China is really significant. Again, most Americans don't differentiate between China and Chinese or Asians in the US, and I think that's why we hear so much anti-Chinese and anti-immigrant sentiment during these hate incidents. it's both Trump supporters and non-Trump supporters parroting Trump. And so that's really significant. And that's why we're working with the 1990 Institute, because we see how foreign policy is impacting the racial position of Asians in the US. And so that too needs a media campaign, I think, as both parties using US-China relations as their campaign issues and wedge issue. And unfortunately, we're not in the position to do that type of political messaging, nor to do the campaigning that needs to be done. So I think having elected officials really hold others accountable is really important. The ad campaign, we consulted with the National Ad Campaign and think that a lot of these efforts, like Fight the Virus Bias, Wash the Hate, are all really useful. And that's why Stop the AAPI Hate didn't do social awareness campaigns, but rather we're pivoting towards more public policy issues. It seems to me that most people are, I think we've done a good job in making people aware that anti-Asian bias is present. It's just that in the Harris poll, 50% of white Republicans don't care that nation is rising. So the National Ad Council's effort to focus on those armchair liberals is probably more effective. And so it was really strategic and targeted. A lot of people ask, why don't we have a more comprehensive, coordinated approach to addressing anti-Asian bias at this moment? And again, it's really difficult for smaller organizations who are a little bit more siloed to do national collaborative efforts. We don't have the funding, we don't have the labor. But I think actually having multiple social media campaigns put out by celebrities, put out by the Ad Council, put out by politicians are probably more effective than just having one united messaging. Overall, the awareness campaigns have the same approach, I think, if Stephen would agree, of just raising awareness. And the next step is for us at Stop AAPI Hate is to get people to report. So, and like Advancing Justice is pushing, is to get people to intervene. And so that's the action, the call to action that's different from the awareness campaigns. And so for me, I think the next step in our messaging is the call to action, to continue to report, to continue to intervene, and then especially to get out the vote.
Thank you, Russell. Let me take 1 minute here. If there are any questions for Stephen or Russell, would you send it through the chat room? And we'll try to monitor. Otherwise, I guess the next topic on our agenda is supposed to be on the recent ICE directive. I haven't seen any comments coming in, so for those who send in later, Stephen and Russell, I hope you would help to respond to either the questions or the comments when they come in. So at this point, let me try to move to the next topic. Can I double check on whether Haipei is on or not? I haven't seen him. The intended topic here is to talk about the directive issued by ICE, and that is about banning international students and sending them home essentially if they do not attend classes physically. If it's purely online attendance, then they would not, their student visas would not be renewed. That was a directive issued by ICE on July 6th. And Harvard University and MIT filed lawsuit almost immediately. And about 60 universities, along with United Chinese Americans, filed amicus brief against the directive. in a good way, I guess that directive was dropped or rescinded. And so the intended question for Haipei, perhaps we can move this to the end of the meeting, hoping that he can join, is to talk a little bit about that experience of filing amicus brief, because up to now, the Asian American community tend to issue joint statements, and going to the extent of filing an amicus brief has been unusual. So I was hoping he could talk a little bit about why and how he decided to lead the UCA into the briefs, and in general, how the Asian American community would get involved in moving forward, especially a week after the original directive was rescinded. ICE issued a new directive which would not issue student visas to new students. So previously it was on existing students, and now the directive has changed to existing to new students. So let me postpone this topic to at the end of the meeting, and hoping that Haipei will join us. The next topic, we do not actually have a speaker on this, but I would like to bring it to the attention to the group here and also the APA Justice Network, and that is about the 2020 census. I think it's fairly well known about the attempt to add the citizenship question to the 2020 census, and it was rejected by the Supreme Court last year. But on July 21st, an executive order was issued by the White House to exclude undocumented aliens from the apportionment base, which means congressional districts, districting after the 2020 census. So almost again, immediately, 4 lawsuits have been filed, and they are linked in the agenda. One by Common Cause, an advocacy group, another by New York State, and a coalition about 20 states, plus some sites, cities and localities. The third one by ACLU and the New York Civil Liberties Union. And the fourth one is by California and the cities of Oakland, Los Angeles, Long Beach, and the school districts in Los Angeles. So this is really fresh off the press, not a whole lot of reaction to it yet, but it's something for your information at this time. The NPR has a pretty good article about the attempt to omit the unauthorized immigrants from the census count. So that's the background, and hopefully in social media or in the next meeting, we can cover this a little bit more. And at this point, I'd like to transition to Gisela. And Gisela, if you have anything to report on the 2020 census related to this topic, please do. AJC has been very active in the 2020 census. But I think today, if you can give us an update on the anti-racial profiling project that the Asian American Justice Center has taken on, that would be very helpful. And we do have some time that we squeeze out so that we can also touch upon the on-the-ground situation in Houston by Jessica and also by HC. So with that background, Gisela, would you give us an update on the anti-racial profiling project, please?
Thank you, Jeremy. And just a quick follow-up regarding census. The Bureau will be sending emails to encourage households in low responding areas to fill out the 2020 census. Currently, the Census Bureau is in the midst of launching their soft launch for non-response follow-up in select locations. I can provide more, a link to Jeremy, and he can distribute it including any translated updates on Census Bureau operations in about 15 Asian American languages. In regards to our anti-racial profiling project, we have hired a new staff member as a part of our team. Her name is Vivian Chung, and she's bilingual in both Mandarin and English. She will be conducting our intakes here and monitoring our hotline, where we will connect impacted Chinese scientists and researchers with attorneys who have experience representing Chinese scientists. So for anyone who you direct to call our hotline, they can receive service for intakes in whichever language they prefer. We're expecting the soft launch in the very near future. However, even before the launch, if you know someone who is in need of an attorney right now, they can contact me directly. We've already connected impacted scientists with attorneys who have experience on issues such as research misconduct and failure to disclose. Now, even if an individual tells you that their university has already provided an attorney, that is not the same as them having their own attorney. They should still get one for themselves. Once our hotline is launched, I can provide the number, but until then, I will just add my email here in the chat room, or you can connect with me through Jeremy. But thank you. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Gisela. At this point, let me try to bring up a couple questions that I have received. Aurora and Crystal, are you still on?
This is Crystal. I'm still here.
This
Crystal.
is Laura, I'm still here.
Okay, this is a question for both of you, and that is, should local and state level Chinese and Asian American organizations and individuals plan to meet with congressional representatives during the summer recess? What guidelines can you offer? That's the question posed to both of you.
Well, I will say it's, this year has been a very, obviously, very non-traditional year in the sense that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, not a lot is happening in person. So I do think if the best way, if people are interested in getting in touch with their members of Congress, I would say are still to write in letters or to call their offices. I think you can also put in a request for meetings with specific members of Congress. I know every office is kind of handling those sorts of requests differently. So some are doing virtual meetings, some may refer you to their staff, but we're not doing, as much of the in-person sort of meetings as we normally would do in a normal year. So I think, again, it's definitely helpful for members of Congress to hear from their Chinese American constituents and Asian American constituents, especially if there are specific topics you would like them to raise, or if you have, whether it's general concerns you want to bring to their attention, or if there is a specific piece of legislation you would like them to support. So for instance, we are still hoping to get a vote on Congresswoman Meng's resolution to condemn anti-Asian bigotry related to the coronavirus. And so that bill has, I think it has over 145 co-sponsors, but we want to get more on there and hopefully bring it up for a vote in the fall. So, if there's a specific call to action too, that's always helpful to flag for an office. And then if not, sometimes it is helpful if you've been the victim of whether it's a hate incident or hate crime, or there's a specific story you want to share and make sure it's on their radar, that's also very helpful. On our end through KPAC, we've been encouraging members to also engage with local Asian American community leaders in their district and to host events if possible. So a number of our members have already hosted events just with their local Asian American community, and sometimes bringing in other stakeholders as well. Jeremy, as you mentioned, the Jewish community has been extremely supportive of the Asian American community as we're dealing with anti-Asian bias and hate. And so I know that ADL has done a lot of events with, partnering in different parts of the country with Asian American organizations. And so some members have convened panels where they'll have experts talk about what's happening, but also if there are specific, individuals in their districts who have been the victims of hate, they'll have those people speak out as well. So we're encouraging members to do more of those sorts of events to make sure they're actually engaging and hearing from their local Asian American communities. But that goes both ways. So again, if there are any of you want to reach out to your members of Congress, we definitely encourage you to do so. If there are specific KPAC members you would like to reach out to, we're also more than happy to help connect you with them.
Thank you, Crystal. Aurora, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I'd like to echo everything Crystal said. Everything that she mentioned are things that I would also recommend individuals do. Another thing that I think would be a good ask of members of Congress is if you do call them and you are sharing a personal story or you just like to flag the issue for them, if you're talking to a member of Congress who agrees with you, something that you could suggest is ask if their office can put out a public statement or even put something out on social media on their official channels over Twitter and Facebook.
I can hardly wait to.
And so that's something that, you could, one, call the member of Congress to bring the issue to, but to follow up on them, make an ask coming from a constituent saying, well, I'm glad to hear that you agree with me. Would it be possible for your office to either issue a public statement through a press release or do some sort of social media? That's not an uncommon ask. We get those sorts of requests to our office frequently, so that's something that you can, one, make the ask by calling the office, or like Crystal mentioned, writing a letter or sending an email through their website. So that's just some other suggestions that I would have in addition to what Crystal had just mentioned.
Thank you, Aurora. There's a question for Stephen Wong, but I'll just read it and then we can connect after the call to respond to the 3 questions. One is, what is the nonprofit ID of 1990 Institute if we can donate? Number 2, can I get hold of the 2 video series, review them and forward to contacts? And number 3, seems like 1990 Institute was formed at the same time as Committee of 100. That ends there. So I'm not sure it's exactly a question, or maybe it's just when it was formed. So let me forward that to you, Stephen. And I think one key question, you said you would invite communities to join your efforts. So it would help to sort of share that contact information. But we can do that afterwards in a newsletter form or some other form. Is that
Thank you,
okay,
Jeremy.
Stephen? Thank you. Gisela also has a message about how to contact her. And again, anyone who's interested, especially about any need for attorney or any Chinese scientists or researchers contacted by the FBI or under investigation by NIH, NSF, or their university, she has provided in the chat the contact information in terms of her email address. And again, that will be shared broadly, not just for today's participants in the call, but also within the network for people who are not able to attend today's call. Is that okay? All right. Then let me move on to the next topic, and it will be, I'll be turning it over to Jessica Chan and also HC Chan. And basically, I received several messages late last night and early this morning, and they're all very urgent. And they're talking about FBI agents apparently knocking on the doors of Chinese Americans in Houston, demanding an immediate interview or contacting them to set up an interview. There's a link in the webpage published by Mara Hasvistano, and a reporter from The Intercept. And she raised the question, was the Chinese consulate in Houston really a hotbed of economic espionage? So apparently after the announcement and after the closure of the consulate, there's a series of activities that's taking place that is creating grave concerns of the Chinese American community in Houston. So at this point, I'd like to turn the floor to Jessica Chan, who is an immigration lawyer in Houston. And Jessica, would you spend maybe 4 or 5 minutes to describe the situation, and perhaps then followed by HC, who is the OCA Houston president, and give us sort of an update on the ground report of what is happening. So Jessica, would you take the floor, please?
Okay. Hi. I'm Jessica Chen, the attorney in Houston. Actually, recently, after the close of the Houston Chinese consulate, there are rumors spread out among the Chinese community, particularly those who from mainland China. And so several people who were reached or knocked door by FBI to ask questions or schedule an interview with FBI. Among those, actually, at least two persons were confirmed that they are already reached by the FBI, and the other two, I just heard from the rumors. I don't know whether this is happening or not. So actually, on this a doctor were reached by the FBI, and they knocked the door on his, I think, office. So they tried to talk to him. I don't know the content, but actually this just happened. And, this is the same time with the Chinese consulate closer. So it's close. So it's a kind of surprise everybody. This happened so soon and so quickly. So as I think that the FBI is investigating the Chinese community, I think this might not be just this maybe 2 or 3 or 4 peoples, or 4 persons were investigated. Maybe they are doing this kind of investigation with other peoples. So there is some fearful atmosphere among the Chinese community right now. It's urgent for people. I think they should know that their rights, how to do and how to deal with this kind of situation. And also, I'm thinking that what else can we do except to educate those Chinese community, those peoples, those persons, so about their rights, and what else can we do? So that's my question I want to raise in this meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Jessica. And I guess we may not have the answer during this call, but certainly I think we should get together, any organization and individuals who are concerned about this situation, we need to follow up. Let me turn at this point to HC, who is the OCA Houston president. HC, would you add to what Jessica just reported?
Sure. Thanks, Jeremy. I see quite a number of folks here from Houston, so I don't think I need to continue to elaborate to these folks what a shock this was. And to say the closure of the consulate sent a shockwave throughout the community is quite a bit of understatement. I think this is more like detonating a nuclear bomb in the US-China relationship. And just when we thought 2020 couldn't get worse, it continues to surprise us with even more developments. The official statement that we received from the State Department on why this consulate was closed, I will quote, is to protect American intellectual property and Americans' private information. We have yet to see any evidence to prove the allegations from the State Department that there was espionage or that the Houston consulate was a spy center. I would like to see evidence, but evidence is pretty scarce in this type of situations. To quote one of the local community leader, that there's a lot of smoke, but we haven't seen a whole lot of fire out of this. And obviously we can't look at this in the vacuum. There's been a series of events building up, I would say probably since 2018 with the initiation of the trade war with mutual accusations of interfering with each other's domestic affairs. We have seen a number of pretty hostile activities in terms of immigration policies advocated by this administration against China, against Chinese students, against Chinese Communist Party members, lawsuits launched against China, and legislations proposed in the Congress aiming to quote unquote hold China accountable for virus, as if China is somehow able to control the virus on its own. There has been a series of events leading to the escalation of tension, the escalation of which leads to the downward spiral and the new low in the bilateral relationship. I guess our concern as Asian Americans is just exactly what this administration is doing. We hear war drums being beaten, and we see the war path being drawn. I don't see the necessity to go down this path. It seems to me, when I talk to people, when I ask people, nobody really thinks that the real reason behind the closure of the consulate has a whole lot to do with the alleged spy activities. If you're like me, you've seen a number of Mission Impossible movies, you would think spy activities probably happen quite a bit. The Chinese folks I've spoken with will point out the fact that the U.S. has a consulate, for example, in Hong Kong, that has over 1,000 members in that consulate, and there simply isn't a need for that many members in a consulate other to conduct probably spy activities. To shut down a consulate over something like this, we usually know that shutting down consulates, shutting down embassies, expelling diplomats is usually the precipice to armed conflicts. So that is an incredibly concerning phenomenon that we're witnessing here in Houston. We just don't know what this administration is doing, and we don't think anybody really believes that the real reason for shutting down the consulate is to protect American intellectual property or private information. It seems to me that most people that I talk to believe that this is a way of stoking nationalism during an election year and to shift blame. And there's a term that we use for this that's called scapegoating. Scapegoat a foreign power that people understand very little about to divert attention, to shift dissatisfaction of this current administration away from this current administration and to somebody else. And we see that happen throughout history time and time again. In the 18th century, we have the Chinese Exclusion Act. In the 19th century, we have the Chinese Exclusion Act. In the 20th century, we have the Japanese internment. In the 21st century, it seems that history is again repeating itself. So on the ground, we urge for de-escalation of tension from both sides. We ask that both sides use restraints to the extent possible. This is international politics. This is not scapegoating. This is not a time for blame game. I urge everybody to return to sanity. We ask Congress to use its influence to rein in this administration on some of the rhetorics, on some of the what I perceive to be pretty irresponsible actions that's being taken. We hope things will be better toward year's end. And one more note, I would say on the civil rights front, Asian community, we just need to work together. We need to work with one another. We need to reach beyond our community and to other communities as well. I will note that, for example, our friends from ADL has been extremely helpful and sympathetic to our cause, and they have provided us with a lot of help. From the bottom of my heart, I thank ADL and our friends in ADL for being such a true friend and true ally to us, to our community. That will not be forgotten. With that, I'll turn back to you, Jeremy.
Thank you, HC.
Hello, Jeremy. I added a few more people to the co-host, including Mark Tobin from ADL, Andy King, and also Wei Wu, and also our City Council member, Alice Chen. In addition, Hype is here now.
Okay, so it looks like we'll run a little bit over time. I hope many of you would have concerns about this situation in Houston and therefore stay for a few extra minutes.
Yeah, Jeremy, I suggest that Houston people will stay behind afterwards on the meeting.
Okay.
We'll talk about to have a webinar in Houston in the very near future. We have booked the Chinese TV time, news time this evening already.
Okay. Let me try to address two questions quickly. One is from Andy Kim. Many of you know that he's a lawyer in Houston, and he wrote the white paper and subsequently the Cardozo paper about the prosecutions of Chinese scientists under the Economic Espionage Act. And Andy, I think you can speak, and I think you can raise your question or at least provide some perspective on the legal risk to the Houston community from what Jessica reported.
Yeah, thank you. So what Jessica is reported, Stephen and Cecil and some other people have heard similar things, is that after the consulate closed, what, 10 days ago, the FBI has started knocking on people's doors. And the big risk here, which seems like a significant risk, is that the FBI is trying to find people to prosecute. Because the nature of the context that we're seeing, the highest risk contact is when the FBI physically knocks on the person's door unannounced. Because, I mean, that tells you a couple of things. One is that they've already done their research on the person whose door they're knocking. So they have questions prepared, but also that they're trying to catch that person unawares. And they're trying to make sure they can talk to them without an attorney. And a big part of the reason for that, or a big part of the risk with, is so false statements. If you're not familiar, that means is that if the FBI or any other federal agent asks you a question and you answer it and you lie them, suddenly you expose yourself to 5 years in prison. And it doesn't, and it's kind of is that bad. And recently, the case at Harvard, the case in Ohio, that happened in Alaska, we're seeing cases where the Department of Justice is bringing freestanding charges for false statements. So in the context that HC was providing to us, in terms of the closure of the embassy, there's some major risk here that what's happening is they've done their research and they're just going out there interviewing people to try to find people to prosecute. And the biggest risk that the Chinese community in Houston doesn't understand that that they don't have to talk to the FBI. If they knock on your door, you don't have to talk. And if they do talk, then there's a good chance they're going to put themselves in a position where they are very, very vulnerable to charges. So I think that the first most important thing here is to help get the message out. And I think Gisela can also speak more on this, is just getting people to understand that, number one, you do not have to talk. And number two, you really shouldn't.
Thank you, Andy. Gisela, I think you sent in a question. Would you like to raise that directly?
Yes, and just to quickly follow up with what Andy mentioned, one of the things that we have been monitoring have been the cases with the China Initiative. And as Andy mentioned, when it comes to a lot of these charges, a lot of them are not actually directly espionage cases. So we see with a lot of the recent China Initiative cases that there has been a lot of non-disclosure charges, a lot of charges that essentially previously would have been handled at universities privately, administratively, but now could lead to criminal prosecutions and years of imprisonment. So definitely don't talk, get an attorney, don't even talk to your friends or anyone. A lot of information is not privileged unless you're speaking with your attorney. And in terms of a question regarding this specific issue, I was very curious on the civil rights front, whether any of the individuals who had the FBI knock on their door, if they've gone to the media or public about what happened, or is it right now only shared by word of mouth? I know that oftentimes our hands are tied on the foreign policy side, but in terms of whether individual rights, whether any individuals have had been targeted or had their rights infringed, we would definitely be interested in hearing their story publicly if that is something they're interested in.
Thank you, Gisela. Since we're 5 minutes past the original schedule, let me quickly close what we have for today, but those interested can continue the discussion, especially the many members from the Houston community. For the rest of today's agenda, there is a list of the, I guess, catch up on all developments. That would be the website as well as the social media for APA Justice. And then there is a couple items for upcoming events. Our next scheduled call for September is supposed to be September 7th, but that's on a Labor Day. So we don't want to belabor you on Labor Day. So we move it to September 14th. So those are the closing items, and then you should have Vincent Wang's email address as well as my email address. So any follow-up questions, please feel free to provide your comments and questions to us. And at this point, let me close the regular meeting. Oh, I do want to invite one person. Did I see Mark Tobin from ADL? Mark, would you like to make a few comments? Because we make so many references to ADL, and you have been a friend to the Asian American community for a long time. So would you be willing to say a few words before we close on the regular meeting?
Yes, thank you. I absolutely, I'm sorry, I apologize. My son just walked in and asked me a question. Apparently he's got a bad sunburn, so I was distracted for a second. Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity. Let me start my video. Yeah, first of all, thank you to Stephen Pai for inviting me to joining y'all today. And it's really been great to see some familiar faces, but also to be introduced to some additional ones, and to hear first what issues that y'all are dealing with firsthand, and also want to thank everyone for the very generous comments about ADL's work with the Asian community. It really is satisfying to know that our work together has been fruitful. This has been a really important issue for us and for me. I've been with the ADL since November, and when started dealing with the coronavirus, this was something that just came up and was really struggling to figure out how best we can make a difference. And working with members of the Houston's Asian community to address some of these issues has been a means for us to really play a role in supporting y'all as well as others who have been subject to this just ridiculous means of scapegoating instead of dealing with the issues. And we have had some good news just in the last week. One of the ways that we've been addressing this issue is to push some resolutions that condemn coronavirus hate, as well as the disproportionate impact of the virus on marginalized communities. It started in San Antonio this past week. Fort Bend County Commissioner's Court passed the resolution, and the city of Houston, which they don't engage in these kinds of resolutions. Instead, they put forward a letter, and that was signed by the vast majority of the council as well as Mayor Turner, and that was released on Thursday. So we're very pleased with those results, and that has been a joint effort of our community, of the Asian community, And it's so important for our leaders to take those stands, because our hope is that will it encourage people to speak out. And I know that y'all were talking about encouraging people to report, and it is our hope that this will aid in that effort. So thank you for inviting me, and thank you for letting me say a few words, and look forward to continuing to work hand in hand.
Thank you very much, Mark. At this point, the regular meeting, I would say, is adjourned, and those who would like to stay up with the follow-up discussion, please join us. So let's give a 30-second break, and then we can continue. How's that? Mark,
Thank you,
located?
Jessica. No, Jeremy, do you want to have Haipei say a few words about?
Oh, yes, yes. Haipei, did you join? Haipei? Haipei, are you muted?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I apologize. I was in a long call and then just totally forgot about this until Jin Liang has reminded me. But you know, what you have a plan on me to say a few words. Honestly, is everybody here knows about it. I don't have a lot more to add to that as a kind of either news or something UCA has done. Just enough to say that we filed amicus brief on. Well, we were thinking about doing a lawsuit, and our board was discussing about that. But before we can really make a quick action, the judge has on a Friday said, well, you know, you guys, those of you who want to get involved in this case, you can by Monday to file amicus brief. So that's only left us with a weekend, and we we jumped into action and worked out a brief and filed on a Monday. That turned out to be in an Asian and Chinese community. We are the only one there that has filed amicus brief in support of Harvard and MIT. This is what is need to be noted, I think, and of significance is during that past 1 month, 3 events has happened, and that all has something to do with foreign students or foreign nationals. First is the White House presidential proclamation, putting together a new category of people who are from military universities or military civilian fusion programs from China. And that has authorized the Secretary of State to have the retroactively the right to, at his pleasure, to expel any of those who are already here in this country to go back to China. I have consulted with Ted Gong, who is a friend of many of us here and a senior advisor to UCA. And Ted has been a very, very, very senior State Department career diplomat in charge of the visa sections. And his view is that it's a totally unnecessary from his 30 years of experience, and it's a bogus. So, and then you have a H-1B visa restriction put it on that. And of course, the last one is the students' new rule by ICE on whether they could come into this country, or those who are in this country, if they cannot go to any real class, will be expelled. So those 3 things are fired one after another within a month, space of a month. It is legally dubious and politically suspicious. Fortunately, and this time, the administration was, I use the words rarely, wise enough to give that up and to rescind the rule. This is the first time ever that this administration has, before a judge had his chance or her chance to make a ruling, that the administration has withdrawn their own rulemaking, their own rule that had been made. So that just tells us that, hey, this is still a country ruled by the rule of law. There is power in some power in all of us working together. And as a last summary of that, there are more than, once this was over, there are more than 9 either states or university has either filed or promised to file lawsuit. And second, there are many more, including Committee of 100, where Jeremy is a member, also planning to join the case by filing Omega Spriff. Of course, because it's such a abrupt and very tight schedule, many of those cannot have a chance to do that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Haipei. So that 30-second break is over.
Now everybody's co-host, so everybody can join the discussion now. It's open
So,
for everyone.
Stephen, how do you want to organize the discussion? Why don't you take it from here?
Okay, Cecil, I think you were the one proposed that we should have Webner and Helen. Maybe 2 of you can lead the discussion.
Yeah, sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I don't have my okay, let me see. Hold on a second. All right.
Okay, let me make a quick announcement. Because I was scheduled to have an interview with the Southern Chinese TV on this Friday. We just moved the schedule up to this afternoon to be broadcast this evening at 7 o'clock news time. And we just scheduled Jessica to get on the TV this afternoon for recording. So if we have reached any decision about a webinar in Houston, then we can announce that this evening.
Oh, okay. I think that's good because apparently this I think it is a good idea. Both Jessica and Wei, has expressed the urgency of a webinar in Houston to at least educate the community, the Chinese community, on what to do and not to do in case they get caught by FBI and so forth. So there's a lot of fear, I guess, community and not sure what to do. So I think this is a good opportunity to kind of bring it to discussion and to have to see how we can organize such a webinar for our community, and who to invite to speak. I think specifically, I think Andy Kim will probably a good potential good speaker to talk about our rights and the history of the Chinese scientists' investigations, but there may be others who want to invite as well. But I'll open up to Jessica and Wei and others, and give us your thoughts on what's the best way to organize this webinar and get it to the people that need them.
And Wei and Helen, do you want to add on?
Well, I would like Wei to speak because Wei actually, I think Wei called Cecil to discuss this, right?
Yeah.
But just for your information, in fact, just a few days ago, Tuesday 28th, we actually held a webinar with UCA Houston and also the Women's Business Network, the Taiwanese community. Probably some of you joined that webinar with also audience from UCA to talk about how to deal with bullying, hate crime, and discrimination in today's world. I feel like we are under double jeopardy of Chinese community being labeled both as virus as well as spy at the same time. And that really encapsulate us in a great danger for the next 3 months. So that response from the webinar was very positive, and we sort of informed and trying to educate our community how to protect themselves with not only hate crime, but apparently this thing, what I heard yesterday from what's happening with the FBI investigation is as if we're being labeled as virus, there's something we have to deal with on a racism level. But if we're being labeled as spy, that has to do with national security, and truly the sense of Red Scare is you know, a big threat to our community. So I'm so glad so many of you joined us today, and to educate people on civil rights front, and that's something urgently needed, and that's been discussed with UC board as well, and HPE is working to bring a national webinar to the community as well. So I'm in favor of hosting a local seminar as well for Houston community, because people will have questions about this, and it will be beneficial for them to know as well. Thank you so much.
Can we set a time if possible? I think we have all the key players here, including Andy and Jessica and FC. We have at least 3 attorneys here from Houston. When would be a good time? Friday evening, Saturday, Sunday, or earlier?
My schedule is relatively flexible, it looks like this week. As I understand it from Jessica, the consulate closed days ago, and the interviews started last week. So if they are continuing this push, then the sooner we get the message out, the better. But we also need to make sure that there's enough time for people to get the message, to learn about the things. We need to be able to advertise. So I would say, as soon as is reasonably possible within the context of being able to advertise.
So today is Monday. Is Wednesday too early? I think Friday definitely is plenty of time.
Cecil, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that maybe today is Monday. Maybe Friday will be good. If it's not too late, people don't think it's too late. I think Friday gives us plenty of time to get the word out to people.
I think what we can do is we can announce the webinar on Friday, maybe say 8 p.m. Houston time. But at the same time, we'll give them some content information.
Yeah.
Primarily, if people want to have a question, there are some people they can call. Maybe we can put Jessica, FC, and Andy, if they can make themselves available. Just tell them what not to do at least. Yep. Not necessary to provide any real legal counseling, but at least tell them don't jeopardize their own position.
So I'm happy to do it, and I think that I can definitely offer some good perspectives here. But I'm actually wondering, because I see Giselle is still on the call here, and so since Giselle, you're AAJC, or are you?
Yeah, I'm Advancing Justice AJC. So we would love to assist and be a part of the webinar. Either John or me could be there on the call. And additionally, if you wanted us to reach out to one of our members of our advisory council for the anti-racial profiling project, we can definitely reach out to some of the attorneys there. Some folks to highlight are Peter Zeidenberg, who is the attorney for Professor Xiaoxing Shi, and also Shen Wu, who had actually conducted a webinar like this before, specifically focusing on research misconduct. Even if we don't have him as a speaker, it might be good to loop him in and get a sense of some of the information that they had provided in their earlier webinar.
I think I can handle that part of it. Yeah, I'm not too concerned about that part of the content, but what I was thinking specifically is I know there's the 2 AAJCs, and I know I was planning on stealing some of one of you guys has some good handouts, specifically on your rights. I was planning on stealing those anyhow. So if you guys wanted to, instead of me stealing it, then you could actually provide it. And also maybe also to talk about your the referral line also. Even though it sounds like it's not live yet, you can at least, it'd be a nice audience for that plug. And if you and I could talk offline in terms of, who around, how you get those attorneys, and who in Texas might be good, because I'm confident in my abilities. I'm not, and I know that there's a lot of really great white collar attorneys around here, but I'm not familiar with anybody in Houston really who's good at this particular issue, because it is very, very niche.
Yeah, no, we would be happy to talk about the our referral project and our hotline. In terms of the resources, the Asian Law Caucus is one of our 5 affiliates, and they have done a lot of the FBI work. One of the things that we wanted to do in Advancing Justice AJC is to eventually have a Know Your Rights for the FBI knocking on your door that's specifically for Chinese scientists. But right now, there are really good resources for generally what you should do for when the FBI knocks on your door. But those resources are very much focused on a lot of the experiences that the Muslim American community has faced, but it's still very, very relevant.
We have those links available on the APA Justice website. We are going to post that. But just for people who do not know about Gisela, I think you might have heard about the project started by Frank Wu, of the former president of the Committee 100. He started a project. Now the implementation or administration is actually done by AJC. So that's where the referral and the legal assistance come in from.
Oh, that's Frank's project?
Yes, that's Frank's project.
Okay. I was wondering what happened with that.
Everything connected, right?
Yes.
So, Haipei?
Just to jump in, you guys are talking about some kind of educational session for Houston Chinese community about in the aftermath of this Houston consulate thing?
Yes.
I see.
I think we can do it, but that can be open to national.
Right. I just want to give you a heads up. We are probably going to make a decision by today, which day we are planning on having a special session with Peter Zettenberg, who is the lawyer who defended successfully Sherry Chan, Xiao Xingxi, and many other cases. So we are most likely going to do such a talk focused on legal defense aspect by the latest next week. So just so that you know, and because I think that what we are going to do is a similar or relevant to what you're talking about just now.
Yeah, I think that's you can do. I think we can do both potentially. Have one just to kind of get the people educated, about their rights and so forth, and then and maybe even we have people there this Friday to answer questions from the legal standpoint on what to share, not to share, and so forth, and then follow up with I think there's a lot of interest on people. I wanted to hear about the defense attorneys, that Haipei mentioned next week, so I think the two will definitely go hand in hand. It doesn't hurt to have both, I think, to get people educated.
Although to be clear here, the current message that the Houston Chinese American community needs to hear right now is actually really straightforward. If the FBI shows up, take their business card, slam the door in their face, and call an attorney. That's the entire message. Peter's great. I worked, I've worked with him before, but he's even more expensive than I am, which is one of the reasons I think that Gisela's list is can be very valuable. Like, You know, I can handle these kinds of cases, you know, like anywhere, but most people can't afford me, and if you can't afford me, you can't afford Peter either. But with this whole thing, the real thing that people need to understand is that they are at risk, that anybody who is encountering the FBI right now is at risk, period. It's not a situation, people just need to know that a lot of stuff that they think would normally be true is not true, you know? If the FBI asks to talk to you and asks you to do your patriotic duty to help them out, you don't have to help them out. You know, that if you tell a little bit lie, you know, like, you know, did you go to the embassy this night? It's like, no, I was babysitting. It's like, okay, 5 years in prison. How's that sound? It really is that fast, and in the current climate, this is all very possible. And so this is, you know, my thinking for this seminar is actually relatively brief. You know, I don't think this should be an hour-and-a-half thing, you know, where people are going to tune in and get tuned out. I think that this particular thing probably should be half hour to 45 minutes maximum, and we should announce it as a very brief seminar. You know, we can lead off with some of the community leaders that we have on the call right now, talking about the rumors that we've heard, talking about the facts that we've heard. We can get me and possibly Gisela or somebody from AAJC to talk about, you know, deliver the message, and then just, you know, open it up for 10 to 15 minutes of curated Q&A, because there's going to be a lot of questions that we can't ask or shouldn't answer, and then just cut off there, at which point then we can say, you know, what's the next steps? Next steps could be that, you know, UCA has another seminar going on. It's going to be pretty interesting. Next steps could be, you know, the community is still responding. We need to figure things out. But, you know, next steps also will hopefully include, you know, some way to get people in touch with lawyers they can afford.
I think I agree with both Andy and Cecil. I think we're talking about two different levels here. Let's talk about what the Gisela is doing. My understanding is they dealt with only cases formally under investigation, right? But what we did in Houston right now is the average people, I think there's a red scare. I think people are scared because of lack of knowledge. And also, we don't want people to make mistakes to jeopardize themselves to be too naive. That's what happened during the earlier NIH investigation. I think many scientists, even they got PhD, very senior established researchers, they're so naive to make some stupid mistakes to jeopardize their own position. So I think we need to get the word out as soon as possible, and basically just to calm down the red scare at this moment. Okay, but if people are really get into the formal investigation, that's where Gisela and Peter and other people come into play. So I think we really talk about two levels here. We don't want to waste the people's time, those with very specialized established attorneys in this introductory effort, like what Andy was talking about. That's 30 to 45 minutes talk. Most of them just let the people in Houston talk, not that much. I think the expert to give them some legal advice, instructions. So Gisela, does that make sense to you?
Gisela has left, I think.
I'm here. I can be here for just a little longer. I echo a lot of what Andy mentioned. I do think that a lot of the information is very basic, because essentially our biggest problem is that people talk before they get to an attorney, and they don't realize that even if they haven't done anything wrong, they could still get in serious trouble with the FBI if they make some sort of mistake or provide some sort of information. The FBI, we have seen, have placed charges that don't have anything to do with economic espionage, and really it's just a form of targeting and bias against a lot of these individuals. So getting that message out there, I agree, that is the most important thing, and then providing them with resources so that they can reach out to organizations such as us, and we can connect them so they can talk with an attorney about the specific facts of their cases. because oftentimes each case will be different, and they really will need to speak with an attorney to see the scope of their case, but also to see how much they need to prepare right now financially. How long is this battle going to be for them before they actually get charged with anything or go beyond their ability to even take out a loan or anything. So definitely the sooner they get the information, the better in the early stages.
Gisela, this is Haipei. I want to ask you something. I assume you work at JC in Washington, D.C., right?
Yes. Our hotline is going to be hosted here at Advancing Justice AJC in Washington, D.C.
And have you set a date yet?
We're going to have our soft launch in the near future. We just hired our coordinator who's going to be specifically doing all our intakes and making sure that everything is available in Mandarin as well.
Okay, the other group that is based in San Francisco, I forgot the exact name, Asian Law Center or AAJC San Francisco or something. They have, at least before, they have a legal group that has provided a lot of advice on this kind of thing, as you said. That is primarily based on their experience dealing with Muslim community. Is that group still there? It was made of a few attorneys there specifically dealing with this issue.
You may be referencing the Asian Law Caucus, which is one of our 5 affiliates. They specialize a lot on FBI work. They have done work in the past with Chinese scientists, but right now a lot of their work on this issue is in collaboration with us since we are launching this project. So we are doing a lot of press releases together. We have an upcoming brief that I will be able to share with the community shortly. So a lot of the work they do right now is in collaboration with us and not an independent work. But we are happy to share any of the resources that they have. We can reach out to them.
Yeah, can we have a talk today after this call this afternoon? I just want to make sure we know each other and what else is going on this issue.
Yeah, if it's possible to connect on, not today, but later on this week, just because I have a couple of meetings after this call. But definitely I would love to be in touch, and I can definitely connect with Andy about the webinar, which I know is something that's urgently going to be happening this week.
Gisela, let me don't hold you up too much longer. Just a quick question. I know that Ariane also have some effort in this area. Is she part of your effort, part of AAJC or not?
Yes, thank you, Stephen. So Ariane is a part of our advisory council. Our advisory council consists of attorneys who have worked on this issue and who have been referred by other contacts we've had. So Ariane has been doing amazing work on this. So we definitely appreciate her expertise.
Yeah, that's what I suspect, because she was involved with Friendwood way back. So I'm she will continue on this.
She's done a lot of educational work. So we have a lot of our work. We run through some of the experts to make sure that everyone agrees with what we have put out there. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, all.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. So if I can bring this back to a Houston conversation here, it sounds to me like we have an agreement that we should have a webinar that should be short and that should happen as soon as possible. And so since we're all agreed on that, then it sounds like that sometime this week and sooner rather than later is good. But there's the logistical issues, we need to figure out how, who talks, the order of talking, how we push the thing out to, so people know about it, and who's paying for the hosting for the Zoom meeting. And I think that's probably the big things. And I guess also branding of the event, because an event like this, as long as there's a sponsor, as long as there's a nonprofit sponsor like OCA or CACA or UCA then it shouldn't be an issue with getting approval for my French talk. But it sounds. I think we should probably take this opportunity to figure out the direct logistics.
Pepe, may I have your permission to use the UCA license because we have 1,000 participants.
Of course.
So that will cover everything. Then I can take care of the technical part like what I'm doing today.
You become a technician now.
I am a
Congratulations.
technician. I'm an engineer.
The technician. Congratulations.
So
I'm
then,
an electrical engineer. So
Stephen, as IT support guy.
I'm the IT support guy. I've been supporting APA Justice monthly meeting.
So I guess another question then is, what do we expect on this call, and how many people can Zoom handle?
1,000.
Do you have to do anything to set it up ahead of time, or is it just automatically will take people up to 1,000?
Well, yeah, I'll open the 1,000 automatically. We can admit people as many as 1,000. We never reach 1,000. I think all the Zoom meeting I attended, we rarely pass 500.
Are you going to set up a Zoom meeting or a webinar, or how do you plan to kind of?
So far, I think the Zoom meeting works fine because that's what we're doing today. I'm using the Zoom meeting today.
Okay.
Okay. So because Zoom meeting, we have the waiting room.
Okay.
And basically, I can make as many people as co-hosts as possible. The only downside is the participant can only pose question to one of the host or co-host. So that's a limitation because otherwise in the webinar, we could do it to all the panelists. But if you have a preference, then we have the webinar license, which can host up to 500 people. So I think we can do either way.
I actually think that's having all the questions go straight to the moderator or the host is probably a feature, because that way it doesn't distract the speakers. And like I said, there's going to be a lot. There's probably going to be a lot of questions that we really can't get into. About
that's right.
Personal, about individual circumstances, and like my approach to this has to be very much just a know your rights campaign that's disconnected from anything in specific. So I don't see that as a downside.
Yeah, I think based on our experience in the last time, the Winston Chin to George Floyd webinar, I think it's really better for the question only go to the moderator. Okay, and moderator can screen the question and read the question out to the panelists like what we do today. Mm-hmm. Because actually participant can point the question to any one of the host or co-host, not just to the moderator. So for example, the person can just point the question to a particular panelist. So that's why we have been doing this, evaluating the difference between the two. I think the Zoom meeting actually has an advantage there.
All right, so it sounds like we've agreed. So it sounds like we can do, Stephen can handle the technical aspects. All the questions will be directed to the moderators. It sounds like it's going to be a UCA branded event.
Well, I think we can all sponsor the hosting together. We are just provided IT support.
All right, so then
we can all co-sponsor. I think OCA, UCA, we can all be in there.
Co-host.
So then
you can co-host.
We can co-host the whole thing, and also I think if the Asian Bar Association could be part of that to give people the feeling of the legal favor in the whole thing, that would be a plus.
Is HC still on?
HC, I think he left already, I think.
HC left already.
Yeah, but he has indicates it's okay for OCA to co-host this event.
But in terms of Asian Bar Association, that's a different story.
Yeah,
It's just, yeah.
we can
Go ahead.
ask.
Okay, we can on later. We
That's
don't have to
offline.
rush right now.
Yeah, we can ask. That's okay. It's no
Okay.
problem.
The
Yeah.
only thing we need to send out message today is that I think that OCUC will co-host the whole thing. We can even decide who will be the moderator, who are the panelists later. But I think important thing we need to get out is that a few attorneys contact information. One thing we can do is we can set up the email, the same one we used 2.5 years ago for the FBI forum. Basically, that's the email address we have is question2speaker@gmail.com.
Mhm.
So we can just tell people to send a question to their email address. And we can forward that to whoever the attorney will be to answer the question. So that's the contact point with one single email address without identifying the person. So we can get the word out as soon as possible without the details.
So then in terms of speakers though, I think we need, so I think the co-hosts can leave it, and I think Jessica should probably be involved with the introduction and or closing, because she's the one who started this whole thing.
Yeah,
I probably am a pretty good
moderator is Gordon Kwong. He moderated the panel discussion 2.5 years ago, and he also moderated from Winston Chin to George Floyd webinar.
And he does have that presence of his.
And his attorney.
Yes.
Okay. Now, but in terms of speakers, now, okay, besides Andy, who well, Andy can talk about the rights, okay, and who else should we invite as a speaker for Friday? You mentioned Stephen earlier about maybe giving some basic on to the scientists on what to do and not to do, something along those lines.
Andy can do that.
Andy can do that.
Oh yeah, I actually, I don't know if people know this, but I represent people like these. I have
Right.
clients in these situations. So yeah.
Okay, so good. All right. Wait,
Like
Way's online. Can you,
Thank you. I was out a little bit on the phone call. On the speaker, I want to recommend, I sent an email to Stephen, and I think I copied on Cecil. I think, can we invite some speakers who can be attorneys? People say, yeah, they may be contacted or threatened by FBI, and they can contact this attorney. Basically, they will be the Asian community approved attorney. They have experience dealing with FBI. They have represented Asian Americans in recent court cases or something. Because I also talked to different people in the community. They said they chose some attorney. They don't know who is good or have experience, and then they waste the money, waste the time because they did not handle it properly. So Stephen mentioned Frank Wu started the project. Maybe he has a list of reputable.
No, that's what the Gisela was doing. So I think we need to have Gisela, somebody from AJC attending, because they will not play a major role in our webinar or our meeting, but they will the next level for people who are really under investigation. Okay, and that's where that referral, where I really talk about the top-notch attorneys at the national level. So I think we need Gisela or somebody from AJC there. We have been talking to John Young. So AJC is really running the project right now.
But a local attorney maybe who can represent people like here
that's
in
right.
Houston.
I think local, I think in Houston, the only one we know is Andy.
Andy, do you represent the cases to talk to FBIs?
Yes. Yeah. I've handled cases from MD Anderson and some other ones now also. But yeah, I've dealt with these at every level. You can basically think of me as a cheap Peter Zeidenberg. That's anything you can do, I can do, but cheaper.
Yeah.
It's but I think the project that Giselle's doing at AJC with Frank Wu, it's actually really complicated, and the reason that Frank started the project is for exactly what the reasons that Way's talking about, that this is a very narrow field, and there's most attorneys are not qualified to handle this. Honestly, most white-collar attorneys are not qualified. You need a white-collar attorney to handle these cases, which means that most attorneys that anybody finds are not going to be qualified to handle it, and most white-collar attorneys aren't familiar enough with the issues to be able to handle it. And so that's why the project that Frank and AAJC are doing is so important, because it's like off the top of my head, I can think of literally 5 attorneys who I would trust to handle a case like this. There's me, Peter Zeidenberg, Nelson Dong's great, Brian Sun. Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
There's about, I would say, 10 to 15.
Okay.
Still being selected.
But what about national level?
Right.
In Houston, we have only one.
Right.
Yeah, there's another company. I did some research online, and they have a Dallas office and a Houston office. They wrote a bunch of things about when FBI knock on your door, and they write a case like, say, what you said, if you say this way is wrong, and what you should say. You know that firm?
What are they called?
Okay, what about this offer?
name?
I got an email from Wei.
Yeah, they have a very
We don't need to work out the details there later. I think the goal for the first meeting is really tell people what they need to watch out without jeopardizing their own position. And if they are really been getting seriously into the cases, that's where the next level is. Andy with the one single contact point, and Andy will not be able to handle all the cases, but Andy could be the referral point.
I suggested that we made a list and publish in the Friday's meeting. Posted it. I mean the attorney referral list. Maybe Andy can give this list.
So that's why I want to speak to Giselle about it. Because there are, seriously, like right now, if we were to provide a list of trusted attorneys, then it sounds like, based on what Jeremy is also familiar with this project, it sounds like there'd be 10 to 15 attorneys, all national, and all of whom are really expensive. And so in terms of people who can actually be, we can actually send referrals to, locally, there's me. And if there's, it sounds like that Wei may know 1 or 2 people, but I would definitely want to talk to her about who those people are before we send them to them. But I think that maybe what we should do here is, so if we're all agreed on say 40 minutes total. Does that sound about right?
That's about right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So then that sounds like we need a moderator, and so I guess we can delegate to Cecil and Stephen to figure out who's the moderator. Or it's Cecil, Stephen, and Jessica. If you guys can figure out who the moderator will be, and also talk about introduction. Introduction can be say 10 to 15, 10 to 15 minutes maybe, and or introduction can be 5 minutes, and then we can have somebody, possibly Jessica, or probably Jessica, because it sounds like that she's the one who is most familiar with the situation, who can talk about the direct things that we've heard about, that we have heard credible, verified reports of the FBI on people knocking on people's doors, and that we have, people are confused, so that she can. So we have the introduction from the leaders of the organizations. Then we have Jessica, who can lay out the problem. Then I guess I can talk for about 10 minutes, I guess, about what to do, about what to do in those situations and what the risks are. And the risk that everyone needs to understand is that even if you've done nothing wrong, that if you talk to them, you'll still go to jail for 5 years. And that's an actual real risk. And then after that, I think it would be great, I think, if we get AAJC to talk about the referral program. The referral program, it sounds like, isn't live yet, but hopefully she can talk to AAJC will be able to at least highlight the issues here. And the first issue that's, in terms of selecting an attorney, is that most attorneys are not going to be qualified. The vast majority, Jessica is a great immigration attorney, but, she's not qualified to handle white-collar cases. And so AAJC, maybe we can get them involved just to say that, that you want somebody who's a white-collar attorney or has experience with these, and you want somebody who's familiar with these things, so that she can talk, anybody who knows, anybody who isn't in, who doesn't have the basic qualifications, like what you're probably just throwing with your money away.
Yeah.
And then even, we may not, it would be great if we could write to AAJC, but it sounds like they're not quite ready yet. But AAJC and possibly Way or somebody, just, talk about that. You need to talk to a lawyer, but you need to find a good lawyer, and AAJC is getting ready, is working on that problem. And, but if you need somebody now, then contact AAJC or somebody, and, we can get you somebody who's qualified. And then wrap up with closing.
Like Jessica suggested, can you look at the list in Houston? Because if you get someone from out of the town.
Wait, it doesn't work, okay?
No.
We have been using the lawyer who have been represented the case sued by FBI.
Huh?
About the NIH investigation.
Oh.
Those lawyers, after the person has been hired, and the person actually came back to talk to Jeremy and me asking for further referral. So there are people talk about they handle cases, but talk about Chinese American, that's a very, even dealing with FBI, that's a very special case. So don't be, as Andy said, don't throw money away. Let me suggest the following. Jeremy and I have been talking to, has a number of things we need to talk to both Frank Wu and John Young of AAJC. Okay, Gisela may not be the right position. She is just an intern working at AAJC right now. She is not in the position to make any decision. I will work with Jeremy to follow up with John Young. He is the executive director of AAJC. He's really the one in charge of the project started by Frank Wu. And put this way, 10 to 15 attorneys in this field. This is a very specialized field. Even Frank Wu himself say, I cannot handle that.
Really?
Okay. So there are law firms, they want to take your money. Don't worry about it. And I know the people at MD Anderson, how much money some of them spend. Okay. They could have two very high income family, and that is stretching their limit as well. So when you make referral, you have the moral responsibility as well.
I see.
At the same time, when we talk about only 10 or 15 qualified lawyers nationally, we really need to protect them. We don't want to be overburdened them for anybody to make phone call to them, even though they do have staff and secretary to help.
Mm.
Because these people is not going to charge people at the market rate. So we cannot abuse that relationship, okay? It took a time. That's why John Young at this moment has not been able to launch the program yet, because this pool is so small and we need to protect them, okay? So I would be against to publish this list of the 10, 15 people. So we need to have a screening process. The screening process may be going through the AAJC hotline when it's up and running. Before that, to some degree, Gisela and Andy might have to share some of the burden here. Andy, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Because the other side to it, in terms of swamping it, is that with so few qualified attorneys on this, then most people can't really afford the rates. You know, like when I do an intake, then you know it takes a long time to do a real intake on a lot of these things. And you know, if I'm charging even the reduced rates that I can offer, then it adds up super fast.
Right.
What
And
is
so I
your
think,
reduced rate?
what?
What is your reduced rate? You mentioned reduced rate.
Oh. Honestly, it's hard for me to go below.
Jeremy, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, there are a couple items I want to add. One of them is that Chinese American lawyers with linguistic skills can be a big plus.
That's right.
For the lawyers who are specialized in this field, they usually don't speak Chinese, okay? And many of the clients or potential clients are relying on the use of Chinese. And in one recent case, what I learned, and I was the sort of the interpreter in between, and I'm not a professional interpreter in any way, and I realized that there is a big difference in understanding the nuances, all these small words, even little things, and I'll give you an example. If I get arrested, how do I contact my family members to keep them informed? Something like that. It took a long time just to translate it, to make it clear that it's fully understood. And so I think Chinese American lawyers who may not be specialized in this field can help to play a role if it can be arranged to build such a network to help those in the specialized field to understand linguistically. And the second part is that the sad thing is that this person that we work with, she decided to just take off and return to China. And that puts the rest of us in some risk because that's considered a flight, right? And I guess Andy can explain that. You can be charged in absentia, and it gives a bad image for the rest who do not flee. And you know, that person may be totally innocent, but from her perspective, because of the high cost of the lawyers, from her perspective, it's easier to just take off. So those are the little things that, they're not little things, I should say, those are some of the key issues that need to be considered. And I think Chinese American lawyers not in the field can also help in some ways. I can't describe to you what exactly it is. I'm not a lawyer, but I think that's a couple of things to consider.
I think that's one of the things I mentioned earlier that Jeremy and I talk about. I think we need to put together a pool of interpreters to be the interface with the client and also this specialized pool of attorneys. Okay, just like Andy, I think we listen interpret for Andy sometimes. I think that's where people like Jessica's background would be very useful because you know the legal implication. You may not know the specific situation and the nuances there. But I think we need to build a pool nationally to support these 10, 15 attorneys. I think that's very important.
Yeah. Also, another point, when I talk to Cecil, would you think it's necessary we should get reporters also in this because they can call attention saying there's something going on and make people know about this and to
Jessica and I will be on the Southern Chinese TV this evening.
Okay.
Recording at 2:50 this afternoon, and they'll be on the TV news this evening. So this need to go out to the Chinese media ASAP.
Okay, just a reporter to talk about the situation, the FBI on Chinese community, like say Chronicle, or they reported the Chinese consulate being shut down. Should they, reporting on what's...
I think the important thing here is not to publicize in the public domain, it's really publicized within the Chinese community, we need to control the red scare within our community. We may not want to alarm the whole mainstream media at this point.
Okay, okay. What about Congress people? What do you think? I guess you might discuss that
We
too.
have 2 staff attending the meeting, including Crystal is the executive director of the KPAD. So that means Judy Chu will know.
Okay,
Okay, and Ted Lieu will know.
okay.
So that's 2 of the 3 congressional, Asian American congressional members. That's why this meeting is important. That's why we scheduled Jessica and SC to speak today.
Okay, yeah.
So
Good.
it sounds to me like we've got a pretty, we've fleshed out a lot of the issues here. And I think that Stephen's probably right. I think I agree that normally we might want to call in Maya Shea or Rose Aragon, who's a Filipino reporter in Houston now. Yeah, I think that Stephen's right, that at this point, at this stage, mainstream media exposure would probably only draw more negative attention to it than be useful and be. So I guess we need to figure out, I guess there has to be some kind of decision made on a date, which that can probably be handled offline. One last thing that I was wondering about that raised by the issue with Jeremy and Jessica and Stephen is the language barrier. So I speak English and I speak a very little Korean, but is it important? Would it be important for this online thing to be translated into Chinese, or the affected people fluent enough that they'd be able to understand what I'm saying?
Can you develop maybe a Chinese, like a one-pager or something, and then we can put it on the screen when you say know your rights? I read something online, they mentioned the 4 rights, the first and the 5th and the 6th, something like that. And then we translate it into Chinese language, and then just one-pager, people can take it, or we can even spread around later.
Yeah, I think Jeremy has something we put together on the APA Justice webpage in English. We can translate that into Chinese.
Well, there are 2 sets of materials. The first one is written by Frank Wu, and it's a very long, comprehensive article that has already been translated into Chinese. And the title is, Why Do You Need a Lawyer? Okay, and that's very comprehensive. It's in Chinese. I can send that and you can see how appropriate it is. And you may want to break it up into pieces to keep it shorter. The second set is provided by ACLU. And it's also what do you do when FBI knocks on the door. And also includes immigration people knocking on your door. Okay, that's also in Chinese. So those are the 2 available on the APA Justice website. You can take a look at it and see how it should be supplemented or modified, but at least they are available resources.
I think, Jessica, maybe you can help to really lead that effort to get that organized. And I think it needs to be simplified, okay, into capsules and then translate into Chinese. I think we need some people who knows the Chinese legal terms, because even people like me or even another people, even if Gordon Kwon speaks Chinese, he doesn't know the Chinese legal terms to translate that properly. So I think we should have some attorneys, even though they are not specialized in this field, they can really word it in the right way in the Chinese language, Chinese terms. I think that would be very important. I think we can work with the other people in other cities to really put a pool together to get this information out. That'd be very helpful, I think.
Well, and I also just want to say that I think that's when Gisela was talking about the ALC, the AJC materials. I think that's what she was referring to, is that they have those materials already translated into Arabic and other languages that have large Muslim community populations, but it sounds like they haven't they have a lot of the materials that we're talking that Wei's talking about, but they haven't translated those into Mandarin yet or into Chinese yet.
Yeah,
So
Jeremy, have you followed up with Frank Yang yet? I think that's the topic we talked about the last time. Jeremy, can you hear me? You're on mute.
I muted myself. Yeah, you mean John Yang, right?
That's right, John Yan. I think we
Yeah.
need to follow up with him.
He's on vacation right now.
Okay.
So he should be back the following week. And John Yang and I and Gisela and his staff meet once every 2 weeks, and we cover these issues. So I brought it up the last time we met.
Okay.
And so it's on his radar screen, and I want to elevate the priority right now so that it will get discussed soon.
Well, I think that's one thing because Jin Liang, he attended the meeting today, is the incoming chairman.
Okay.
Okay. So I think in terms of translation, there may be a bigger pool we can bring in.
Okay.
Also the interpreter issue.
Mhm.
Okay. I
Okay.
think that's where we may be able to bring in more resources from these
Right.
grassroots organizations.
Right.
That's what we talked about the last time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that the CISO still here. I think OCA also has some resources, but I think we need to bring into the new immigrants talent pool.
Right.
I think that's where Jessica can help.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Just to finish up the say logistics for Friday, we agreed that we're going to do this on 8 o'clock Friday. Is that what I?
Is that too late? I think Wednesday is too early. We still have some network we need to do, but we need to get the word out.
I think we need to decide on the date and time now.
Yes, we do.
So if Wednesday too early, and either do Thursday or Friday.
I think Thursday would be better because the people they might have find something they want to do on Friday night. So Thursday may be better.
Thursday
better?
Yeah, Thursday is better.
Okay.
Is that good for you?
Yeah. Wei, it's okay?
Yeah, sure. I go along
Andy,
with
are
it.
you available? Andy.
Thursday? Yeah. Yeah, Thursday should be fine.
What time? What time?
At what time?
8 o'clock.
Yeah, 8 o'clock.
8
Is it
o'clock?
too late though? Why
7:30 or a little bit early?
7, maybe 7:30?
7:30?
Or say even 7. Is 7 too early? 7, everyone
7
works
is
from
good.
home, right?
Yeah, 7 is good.
Maybe do a 7.
That's some people's dinner time.
Yeah, that's right. 7:30 is better.
Okay. 7:30. All right.
Okay, 7:30 Thursday evening.
Thursday.
I will get the webinar information out.
Yeah.
And we need people to work on at least Chinese publicity material.
To translate Chinese, maybe Helen or Jessica can translate Chinese if we need to and send it out.
Can you work, Jessica, can you take care of that? I think we are working out the detail, we are providing information. And after the interview this afternoon, we should have all the information ready.
Okay, and can anybody send me the articles here mentioned from the APA website, or can
Sure. I'll take care of that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And Stephen, I'm thinking we can get HC to moderate. He's
That'll be good.
He's a lawyer himself, and he speaks Chinese fluently.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So
I never heard him speak Chinese.
he speaks fluently. So
Wonderful, wonderful. Does he speak Mandarin and both Mandarin and Cantonese?
yeah, he came here from Taiwan when he was high school. So
Okay.
Oh, that's why.
So that's good. That's good. SC will be good.
yeah, AC will be good.
So question, the language will be all English or?
I think English and Chinese combined. People want to speak Chinese fine, but they want to talk to Andy should be translated into English.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
Andy will give his talk in English. I think that's fine.
Yeah. And also just one thing, and when you talk to AJ, you may want to just ask, of your organization. I think providing the simultaneous translation, like a subtitle translation or something, might be good. Or any kind of or general information, translating the information, but you'll want to make sure you have at the very least a good disclaimer on any materials you put out, saying that this is not legal advice, et cetera, just because you want to make sure that you don't get in trouble with that.
Yeah, I think
That's
Jessica should be able to handle that.
Yeah, that's the disclaimer. You can speak out before you talk, actually, Andy.
Oh no, I was talking about for the translations, for the Chinese parts.
Okay, the Chinese part of it.
For Friday, should we invite
Thursday?
Thursday, should we invite Jing Wu?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So would you talk to Jing Wu?
Yeah, I invite him. I think
Okay.
he will.
But so it sounds like, I'm guessing, or do we want to keep out the main point? Like, do we want to avoid Maishe?
We don't want Maishe. I think Jing Wu is fine.
Yeah. Okay.
I
think we'll maybe want. Yeah, maybe we want to understand that we don't want this to be a big advertised kind of thing, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. More of an internal discussion. Okay, good.
Thank you. I think that's it.
You're gonna send out
The webinar, the Zoom meeting information, and also I think I'll work with Jessica after.
Okay.
After today.
Okay.
And
So-
Stephen, I just sent you the 2 links to the 2 web pages, so
Okay.
you can distribute
We'll do that.
in Chinese and English. Yeah.
Okay.
And you're gonna send out a flyer so we can send to people, right?
That's right.
Okay. All right.
So I think Jessica and I will coordinate on that one.
Okay. Okay. Can start inviting people.
Okay.
Good.
Can you guys put together a quick email from OCA Houston or whatever, send to my people, and make sure I get approval and all that?
Yeah.
What do you need? What kind of?
Just either send me the flyer or just send me the flyer if you put it together. Or yeah, I'll figure it out.
Oh, okay.
I'll put something together with Jessica and send it to everybody. So basically, I think Cecil, we agree that we are use both the LAM to be co-host, right?
Yeah. Listen.
Okay.
Yeah, I can. You want me to check with the bar also?
That would be good.
Okay, I'll check with the Albert or either Albert or the Asian bar.
Okay, that'd be good because I think it would be good to have some legal organization weigh in. That help. That give people more confidence.
Yeah. Okay. I'll.
You're gonna reach out?
Yeah, Andy, yeah, breaking
So
up.
do you think?
Oh, do you want to? I can. Up to you. What do you think?
Can you go ahead and send an email and just CC me on it? Because I'm on with AV, but yeah, if you can just CC me on it. I think it should probably go to Judy Kim.
Okay, we'll do that. Okay, so Andy will want to approach the Asian Bar Association.
Andy.
Or no,
Huh?
Cecil, can you approach?
I want to approach. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You say I should send to Albert and
CC Andy.
CC Andy.
Yes. And I think Judy Kim, is the current president.
Judy Kim is current president. Okay. Let me see. I don't know about her. I have her email or not.
Well, Andy can send it to you.
Send it to me then. Send me her email.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Then talk to you later.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.